In this video, I'm going to show you how to get the adjusted standardized residuals associated with a follow-up analysis of a contingency table analysis that's larger than a 2x2. And the example is the ad type and the click-through ratio study, for which I've already identified a statistically significant omnibus chi-square result. And now the question is, which ad types were different from the expected frequencies? So we can click on Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Crosstabs. And everything's the same thing as the regular omnibus analysis. Then you need to click on Cells and click on Adjusted Standardized Residuals. And then click on Continue and click OK. And here is the result that's reproduced by SPSS. We've already seen most of these results in the previous video. But the key additional piece of information is the adjusted residual row. Now in the textbook, I actually report these results to 2 decimal places, which I think is the way to go. So how you get that second decimal place is to double click on the cell and then right click and then look at cell properties and increase to 2 decimal places like that. So negative 2.53, and I can increase that one too. And last one. So now I've got the adjusted residuals, which are interpretable as values that follow the Z distribution. And I've mentioned many times in the textbook that a value of 1.96 within the Z distribution is considered statistically so unusual that we should start to wonder seriously about whether an observation is part of that population or not, or whether there's something actually happening beyond chance. And in this case, the adjusted standardized residual of negative 2.53 is suggesting that the percentage here of 1.9 is lower than what would be expected. And we can actually see that the actual count here, the number of people who clicked on an ad that was selected based on whether it was trending or not, was 190, but the expected count was 220. And that is, the observation is lower than the expected frequency. And it's actually statistically significant from the straight, simple point of view of anything larger than 1.96 or negative 1.96 should be considered a statistically significant deviation from the expectation of the null hypothesis. So this is statistically significantly lower than what would be expected. Now the purchase type of selected ad is statistically significantly larger than what would be expected under the null hypothesis in this case, because that's 2.6%. And the adjusted residual is equal to Z 3.31, which is larger than the absolute value of 1.96. And then finally, the search-based selected ad was associated with an adjusted residual of negative 0.78, and that is not larger than 1.96 in absolute value. Therefore, the effect associated with the omnibus chi-square value of 11.976 is really happening in this space here, trending in purchase. It doesn't have anything to do with search, or very little to do with search type ads, which kind of behaved as would be expected under the null hypothesis. So that's how you can follow up an omnibus analysis with when you're doing a Pearson chi-square, anything larger than a 2x2. Now I do describe in the textbook that these values arguably should be adjusted because we're doing a number of analyses on the same sample. And this is something I talk about in the textbook several times. And I introduce it in this chapter to some degree. So I encourage you to follow up and look at the next video, which deals with something called a Bonferroni correction.